question
you
for another week.
You should know the answer, though, Kirstie, if you ask a trivia question.
I should know the semantics of the questions first, but the top four did go down over the weekend in Palmerston North. Hamilton Boys High champions once again of the men's side. Manukura, controversially, were the winners, even though it has currently been split between them and Christchurch girls. But there's been whispers in the last week that New Zealand Rugby looks set to take over schoolboy rugby. What does this mean, Jeff? You've had conversations with New Zealand Rugby about it.
Well, I spoke to Steve Lancaster this morning. I just wanted to get some clarification. There was an article written today about how they're trying to build their relationship with schoolboy rugby. Given the fact they know, and the statistics back it up, there is a significant drop-off in terms of boys continuing, growing into men and going back into club rugby. So they're recognised as an area. They're not trying to take over high school rugby. They can't do that anyway, Taylor, and you know this better than anyone. But the reality is what we're seeing is that the numbers going from schoolboy rugby back into the club scene, it's just not happening. And it's clear to everyone. And there are some concerns around that. And New Zealand Rugby are going, you know what, we have to have a conversation about how we keep these kids playing the game. We don't want to step on the fact that we understand first 15 rugby is important. We want to be aspirational, but in some ways, JK, I think it's really important that this is important not just for on the field, but this is our potential fan base of the future. Families that go and watch games, the moment they move away from the game, they're very unlikely to come back.
Well, I have two problems. One of them's called academies for any sport. So you're making it or not at the age of 13, and I think that's ridiculous. I believe that the Norwegian ski team that won the most Olympic golds in the winter, they don't let anyone specialise till they're 18. Just play. When we grew up, we just played. I get really annoyed also when a young kid has to choose between rowing or rugby or soccer or basketball. That's just being selfish, I believe, because I believe the talent will come to the top. So I've got a real problem with academies. I think we need to look at that. From a rugby point of view, we need to have two pathways. We need an under-85s World Cup, like I mentioned last week, but we need alternative pathways because not everyone can play at the elite level, but rugby for me has always been a lifestyle sport. It's a sport that will take you to London. If you go to London next week on your OE and you play rugby, go to your local rugby club, you get a job, you get a group of friends. It's a lifestyle sport. And the other thing that I'm really wouldn't mind a discussion on is scholarships. I mean, are they ridiculous or are they good or what are they? Because if I spoke to 10 people, 5 say they're ridiculous and 5 say, oh no, it's a good opportunity.
It's a tough one because most of the scholarships do end up coming from places like the Pacific, and that's a whole other situation in itself. And I think the issue at the moment with school rugby is it's so fragmented and there's no clear vision. You know, you've got the focus of the elite, but then there is no other pathway. There's no fun factor or no real goal for every other team there is. You know, like when I was at high school, the 7th grade team, it was a big, you know, fun festival. On a Wednesday afternoon, we'd all go watch the 7th grade team. They weren't the best. They weren't an elite team, but they had fun, and it was all about having fun. And they were playing towards that goal of being, you know, the best team in terms of having support. So I think there's no real clear guide as to what the goal is for New Zealand Rugby at the moment at that level, because so many competitions transcend different provinces. You know, you've got the Super 8 that covers 4 different, you know, provincial unions and things like that. So there's no real alignment across any of those teams. Some provinces are really good at aligning secondary school rugby, you know, from under 13s up until under 18s, and others just have no idea what's going on until 2 weeks beforehand. So I think it's not a bad idea having New Zealand Rugby step in.
I think they've got resource now as well, Mils. I mean, they've got this investment portfolio coming out of Silver Lake. If they're going to invest, surely that's got to be a critical area, because isn't that the future of our game?
Well, they're having that discussion. And I guess you all got valid points, but there's so many different aspects of school rugby, and you know, if they're coming purely back to participation, then you've got to look at where you're putting that resource. Yes, I get what you're saying, JK, in terms of the academies, the first 15 and things like that, but I look at it from a lower grade. If they're going on participation, it's the rest that miss out. You know, I spoke to you guys before in the green room about my son. It's his first real year of school rugby, and now he's not good enough to make some of these teams, but he's now put in a team. He's 3rd form. So what's that, year 9, where he's playing with, you know, year 12s and stuff like that, and there's no coaches. There's no coaches available. They're relying on teachers to be able to coach. They turn up on Saturday and there's no referees. And then guys don't want to come to play the game for fun. And so are they talking about purely from a participation point of view where they're losing those kids? Or are they talking from, OK, how can we make, you know, this whole sort of school rugby a lot better? I think the discussion, I think it's great that they're having the discussion now. They have got the resource and to be able to sort of, I suppose, dissect where that resource needs to go to, because at the end of the day, we are losing participation numbers.
If you go to junior clubs, though, junior clubs are strong. The numbers are great. You think about the Ripper rugby programs that are graduating into the weight restricted and then that goes into open weight, and that's where it's being lost for me. The moment they go into the high school system, all of a sudden it becomes someone else's problem or someone else's issue to organise. When New Zealand Rugby, they've got this wealth of knowledge, they've got the wealth of understanding and coaching abilities to upskill people, to help them work with all the players, every single player, and I think that's the role of the high school. Every single player should have the opportunity to play and get better and get assisted in the game.
So why don't we just take the rugby off the schools and just let them play the first 15? Let the kids play for the club, and then if you're still playing for your club and you can't make the first 15, you've got the under whatever, and it can just be the elite competition that the schools want it to be. Because I see the schools wanting to be elite in everything. They want to have a great team to attract scholarship, attract other. Do they really want to develop the teams past their first 15, or do they really care about the game?
Well, I think that's where it's been muddled. I think it's got to the stage where they've actually looked after their own backyard, and you know that attraction of having a really good first 15 and then the support financially to be able to bring better players there has been always in. I think what the rugby union are now saying is, hey, we're going to oversee and see what's going on in terms of what you're talking about. Do we only play right up to club, until you're sort of fourth or fifth form, and then you roll into the school like they kind of used to do? And if you don't quite make the second 15 or the first 15, but you're still playing for the club against the second and first 15, well, I don't know. And I think the conversation, having that conversation now and really getting in there and trying to discuss those to sort of peel back some of those layers is a great thing, as opposed to there's so many aspects, Taylor, of rugby in general in schools.
Yeah, well, with the framework how it is now, I think why it is gone, when you go from clubbers to school, it's an access issue, because as soon as you take it away from schools, kids are at school every day, so they're going to, join in rugby. I think if we took it away and then follow that model with clubs, you're going to get a drop-off in numbers anyway. But I think what, New Zealand Rugby needs to step in and to do is provide the right framework and get everyone in there. You touched on it. The reason why junior footy is so strong is because the parents are in there helping and they're passionate, and it's when we do involve the schools. So I just think, we're not as passionate as Jeff, as we saw earlier. That's a lot of passion. I'd like to see that at all the schools. But I think, it's a really difficult situation, but I think the resources that NZR will be able to provide will do nothing but good.
Can we just make some decisions, please? Or we're just going to have another review and then have another review and then we'll have another review on that review, so we can have another review and not make a decision.
We'll give you a debrief about the
NRL, people, let's learn off the NRL, right? They said their game wasn't fast enough. They changed the rules 2 years ago. They changed it again last year. The repeated six has made a lot of their forwards lose some of their size, apparently 5 kilos per player, and the game is much faster. So if we're going to talk about the schools, let's put a name next to it, let's make some decision and make some change, and then re-evaluate after the change, instead of having a review on a meeting and another meeting and a review, and then we'll review that and then make no decisions. Our game needs to move a bit faster, people.
I love a Sir John Kirwan rant.
Oh, look, I wanted to actually put you all on the spot and ask you something, but we've run out of time.